Have you ever wondered why a brand new app or a software update can sometimes be a complete and total disaster? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the professional process that's designed to stop that from happening. It's called the systems lifecycle. Let's jump in.
We have all been there, right? You get that notification for a software update, you hit install, and suddenly, nothing works the way it's supposed to. Now just imagine that chaos on a massive company-wide scale. How do huge organizations upgrade their entire tech infrastructure without bringing business to a grinding halt?
You know, the secret is having a solid plan, a professional, step-by-step roadmap that guides the whole process from the very first idea to the final launch and beyond. It's called the systems lifecycle, and it's all about turning what could be a chaotic mess into a clear, manageable journey. So, where does a journey like this even begin? Well, it all starts with Phase 1. Investigation and planning. You can think of this as the blueprint stage. You absolutely have to understand the building you're replacing before you can even dream of designing a new one.
This is where a systems analyst comes in, and their first job is to play detective. They have to dig deep into the current system. What's working? What's broken? Where are the frustrating bottlenecks? And maybe most importantly, what are the people who use this thing every single day actually needed to do? Because you can't build a solution if you don't truly get the problem.
To get those answers, analysts have a whole toolkit of methods, and each one has its pros and cons. Observation gives you real, first-hand data. But, people can act a little differently when they know someone's watching. Interviews let you ask really specific follow-up questions, but man, they take a lot of time and can be expensive. And questionnaires, they can reach a ton of people, but you're lucky if you get a decent response rate. The real key is using a smart mix of all of these to get the complete picture.
Okay, so once all the evidence is in, the analyst gets to switch hats. They go from detective to architect. Now they start designing the actual bones of the new system, laying out things like the file structures, what kinds of data are going to be stored, and how it's all going to fit together. This is where the real foundation gets laid.
And a huge part of that design process is creating something called validation routines. Now this is an absolutely crucial idea. A validation routine is just an automatic check that makes sure any data getting put into the system is, well, reasonable. It's not checking if it's correct, just that it makes sense. Think of it like a bouncer for your data.
For example, here are two really common types. A range check just makes sure a number falls within a certain boundary, like is the temperature you entered between 10 and 50 degrees. Then you have a type check, which makes sure you entered the right kind of data, like did you put a number in the age box instead of accidentally typing a letter. These simple little rules prevent so many errors down the line.
So with that blueprint finished, it's time to move on to Phase 2. We're heading to the construction site. This is building and testing, and it's where the plan finally starts to become a reality.
Look, modern systems are incredibly complex, so you don't just build the whole thing at once. Instead, developers use what's called a modular approach. They basically break this huge, overwhelming project into smaller, bite-sized pieces called modules. Each little piece is built and tested all by itself. Once they're all working perfectly, they get combined, and then, and this is the important part, the entire system gets tested to make sure all those little pieces are playing nicely together.
But how do you actually test a system effectively? I mean, you can't just click around and hope for the best, right? No, you need a really deliberate strategy to actively try and break it, to find all its weaknesses before your users do. The way you do this is with a really careful mix of test data. So let's say we have an age field that should only accept numbers between 18 and 65. First, you test it with normal data, something like 35, just to make sure the basics work. Then you test it with extreme data, so the numbers 18 and 65 themselves, because a lot of bugs love to hide right at the edges. And then, most importantly, you throw abnormal data at it, things it should definitely reject, like 17, 66, or even the word 20. You have to make sure it fails correctly. After countless hours of building and testing and retesting, we finally get to Phase 3, the big launch. This is the moment of truth. This is the high-stakes, nerve-wracking process of going live. Now, there are a couple of classic ways to handle this. The first is called a direct changeover, and we call that the Big Bang approach. You shut the old system off on Friday, and on Monday morning, everybody starts using the new one. It's fast and cheaper, but wow, is it risky. The other way is parallel running, which is kind of like the safety net approach. You run both the old and the new system side by side for a while. It's much, much safer, but it's also a lot more expensive and a lot more work.
Because those two options can be pretty extreme. A lot of companies go for safer, more gradual rollouts. With pilot running, you introduce the new system in just one small part of the company, like in a single store or a single department. You iron out all the bugs there before you roll it out to everyone. Or you could do a phased implementation, where you roll out the new system one piece at a time. Maybe you replace the inventory module first, and then next month you do the sales module. It's a much calmer way to do things.
And, a successful launch isn't just about flipping a switch. It's also about having great documentation. And there are two really important types. First, there's technical documentation. That's the guidebook for the coders. It's got all the program code, the flowcharts, the deep down stuff that will help future developers maintain or fix the system. Then you have user documentation. That's the guidebook for the staff, the people who actually have to use it. It's got the tutorials, the FAQs, all the how-to stuff that makes the transition smooth for everyone.
So finally, we get to what seems like it should be the last step, but it really isn't. This is phase 4, evaluation, and it's all about asking one simple but critical question. Did it actually work?
A proper evaluation goes all the way back to the very beginning. Did this new system actually solve the problems we found back in phase 1? Is it faster? Is it more efficient? And honestly, the most important question, how do the people using it every day feel about it? Their feedback is everything when it comes to knowing if the project was a real success.
But here's the thing. This evaluation isn't just about giving the project a final grade. No, all those findings, the user feedback, the performance numbers, that's all the fuel for the next round of updates, maintenance, and improvements. It's really the start of the next chapter.
In fact, our source material says it perfectly. The evaluation can ultimately lead to a redesign of part of the system if there is strong evidence to suggest that changes need be made. See? That confirms the whole process isn't meant to be set in stone. It's designed to be flexible and to keep improving. And that brings us to the big takeaway. It's called the system's life cycle for a reason. It is not a straight line with a finish line at the end. It's a continuous loop of investigating, designing, building, and evaluating. The end of one journey is really just the beginning of the next cycle of improvement. So I'll leave you with a final thought. Think about that clunky app on your phone, or maybe that outdated software you have to use at work. What piece of technology in your own life is seriously overdue for its own systems lifecycle review? Thanks for joining us.